Good morning, everyone. Our group will be talking about the necessity of universal design in public spaces by analyzing and studying a case study as Science City Ahmedabad. For whom are public spaces intended? The people. They are made for all members of the society, including those with disabilities, who are sometimes overlooked in both society and the design of any given area. Open, inclusive, and democratic public spaces are necessary. People who claim that public areas are open to everyone are spreading a myth. In reality, we need to raise awareness of universal accessibility and its guiding principles. The society needs to be pushed to see things from the perspective of those who deal with such challenges. According to the 2011 census, 2.68 crore people out of India's 121 crore people who were identified as disabled, making up 2.21% of the overall population. 56% of people with disabilities were men and 44% were women. Considering that Science City is regarded as a solid design example for universal design, let's start with that case study. But is it actually a good illustration? Science City, which is situated in the west of Ahmedabad and was set up in 2001 with a motive to spread awareness about the progression of science and its application in human life. Ventured by the state government of Gujarat, this Science City is a blend of education and entertainment. Let's begin by discussing how to go to Science City. We decided to travel further by walking and via the AMTS and BRTS public transit systems. It took us 44 minutes to get from CEPT University to Science City, where we first started our adventure. From CEPT University to Dadasaheb Pagla AMTS bus stop, it took us 3 minutes to walk and 12 minutes to the income tax bus station. After that, it took us 3 minutes to descend to Bhuyandev BRTS bus stop, where we boarded a 17-minute ride to the Kesarlal Medical College. We took about a 4 minutes walk to the remaining distance to Science City, though other IPT options like rickshaws, Uber and Ola are also accessible. The journey of changing two buses made it quite hectic, and if we put ourselves in the shoes of the disabled, no provisions of seating are given in the bus except on the fare. Lack of facilities like ramps or gaps between the entry of the bus and the platform makes it all the more difficult and terrific for a disabled person to travel independently. The primary entrance to the site is blocked by barricades, which disrupts the flow of the sidewalk from the main road. The pathways leading to the entrance includes gutters where a wheelchair or a blind person's stick could become caught. Additionally, they place benches in the middle of the sidewalk, protruded objects, and large banners which further clutter the area and make it all the more difficult to move around smoothly. There is plenty of parking, a ticket booth, and a pick-up and drop-off locations for golf cart rides just next to the entrance. However, it definitely lacks universal design, because neither wheelchairs nor parking spaces for the elderly or disabled are offered at the main entry or even close to the entrance. To access a wheelchair, a person who has trouble walking must walk around 600 meters and pass through the security. Accessing the ticket desk may also be difficult for someone using a wheelchair. The entry to the security check has a Divyang entry signage but has no actual guidelines followed. Because the handrails leading to the security check are built for the slope of the staircase instead of the ramp, it is really challenging for someone who is disabled to utilize them as a guiding rail. Its ratio is 1:8, although by Indian norms it should be 1:12 or 1:15. We will now take a closer look at the complex's various spaces. The ideal norms for protruding objects on the footpath shall not exceed 100 mm. The seatings should be placed along the compound wall with a clear walking distance of 1200 mm minimum. The drainage holes and slots shall not exceed 20 by 20 mm and 13 mm respectively, which will prevent the wheels or sticks to get caught up in. The ideal parking slot for the disabled should be 2400 by 4800 mm with a 1200 mm marked access zone for their movement. The handrails should be at a height of 900 mm for ease of access, and it should extend a little further ahead of the staircase. It should be 900 to 1000 mm above ramp and 900 to 1100 mm above landings. We'll now take a closer look at the complex's various spaces, starting with the amphitheatre. We chose to do an exercise where we were blinded and in a wheelchair, and that's how we navigated the campus in order to truly grasp the challenges they face. The drainage system in this area was designed for rainwater system, but there was a chance that children or people with disabilities could fall into it. There were no tactile pavers along it as a warning indicator, and the depth was varying from 450 mm to 1 meter deep. Because of the uneven surfaces, it was difficulty for wheelchair users to move around easily, and it utilized a lot of energy. Lack of seating spaces around the complex led to people using these gutters as seating spaces. The signages are not accessible. It could be placed a little lower along with braille and bold colorful images to aid to the visually impaired and deaf. The ramp leading to the amphitheater is at a slope of 1:12, which is good enough and was quite okay for a wheelchair user to access it with ease. The amphitheater water body has handrails which will prevent a visually impaired person from falling into it, but it has gutters leading to a path where we can see the wheelchair getting stuck and causing an obstruction in the movement. The exit ramp, which was amidst the amphitheater and cafeteria, was extremely inaccessible and narrow with a slope of 1:6. The start of the ramp had a raise of 50 mm, which made it impossible for a wheelchair user to ascend on its own. The grooves on the ramp added on to the number of difficulties. Another ramp leading to the cafeteria had a 160 mm step at the end of it, making it completely inaccessible. Recommended distances for seating for the visually impaired and wheelchair users should not exceed 150 meters. For people who are ambulatory without walking aids or are on crutches or other mobility aids should not exceed 50 to 100 meters. The ideal ramp as per norms should be 1:15 to 1:20 with the railing at a height of 600 to 700 mm or 900 to 1000 mm. The length of ramp should not exceed 9000 mm and should have landings of 2400 mm wide on either sides of the ramp. The entry leading to the Hall of Science has a raise which restricts the wheelchair user to enter the area. The surface was extremely uneven and had a lot of grooves which did not help for ease of movement. The emergency exit was locked and inaccessible. Although the Hall of Science has a signage for toilets for disabled, but in reality there is no provision given for them. Direct access to toilets even for the abled was a havoc. It passed through ongoing renovations. The toilet of handicap did not have guide rails or a clear circulation space for a wheelchair user. The wash basin was in a corner at a height of 1200 mm, which made it difficult for a person on a wheelchair to access it. The water purifier did not have a gap underneath for a wheelchair to slide into, where an ideal gap of 230 mm is required. Fire safety provisions have been made, but none of them are in use even for the general public. Multiple viewing experiences were placed at a higher level, which were not easily accessible for the disabled. Ideally, it should be inclusive for all and designed on the ground level. The exit to the Hall of Science has no provision of ramps. How will a disabled person get down with a guide rail or even without a ramp? As per norms, the fire exit multiple strategies can be implemented, which include creation of separate areas for exiting to a safe area on the same floor or creating a safe holding area. For people with hearing impairment, early warning system in the form of visual flashing lights can be installed. Similarly, hooter alarm or an alarm with flashes is helpful for people with varying disabilities. Emergency signages and wayfinding should be installed to orient during emergency for safe evacuation. The door should have clear width of 900 mm. The handicap toilet should have a clear turning radius of 800 mm minimum for circulation with 50 mm by 940 mm area for the WC and 760 mm wide area for the wash basin with 250 mm leg space underneath for a wheelchair user to slide ahead. The toilet room signages should not be placed on the door but on the side of the wall. The nature park entrance has 2 ramps on either sides which are at a slope of 1:8 with the railings not properly fixated. As a person moved up with the help of it, the railing was found to be moving. A person on a wheelchair independently cannot ascend the ramp. The only thing accessible for people with disabilities or old people in the nature park are walkways. All playgrounds, parks, photo booths are surrounded by a 200 raised curb on all sides with no ramps. The kids here are found to enter the fountain and drinking water from there. Improper signages for the entry were marked, but there were no entry to be found, which led people to climb the wall and use the washroom, again making it inaccessible for some people. Building entrances that are raised to a podium level for the purpose of enhancing visual impact and sight presence are likely to be less convenient to access and may present a barrier to some people. The Life Science Park entry had a 150 step and then a ramp of slope 1:8, both making it inaccessible. The circular pattern, although aesthetic, it prevented for the wheelchair to move on it independently. Walking paths had raised curbs in the middle of it, due to which the users had to go around the entire area and then access the nursery. The drains along the walkway were left open without any tactile pavement around it. The informative banners were placed at a height of 400 which was quite low for anyone to read. The wooden bridge leading to the artificial river could not be accessed by wheelchair users as it was getting stuck. It further led to a staircase and made it inaccessible for people with crutches or wheelchairs. The stairs had gaps between them where the blind person's stick can get caught. The entire artificial river was not in working condition. Although the planet Earth had a ramp 1:15, but the entry to the ramp had 1:5 ratio slope, which restricted a wheelchair user to move independently till the first landing. The ramp has guide rails along it, but a gap between them led to a different path, made it misleading for a visually impaired person as there were no guiding tactile pavements. The fire hydrant was placed above the water body, which is risky and was not accessible. The fire exit was locked, which was led by a staircase and no ramps anywhere even close to it. The toilets inside the planet Earth were accessed by descending through a staircase and were closed and not accessible for anyone. The attempt to give natural light and ventilation was good, but it did not suffice the entire area. Many parts of the planet Earth were dark. The drinking water facility has a raise of 150 although ideally it should be at grade, and a gap of 230 underneath providing leg space. The aquatic gallery is aesthetic but has given no design considerations for universal design. The entry to the gallery has no ramps or railing along the staircase. The exit does have a ramp, but a person cannot access the entry, then how can we expect them to come out? The entry leading to the security check has a queue on the staircase, which is quite risky for a visually impaired person to move around. Only one escalator throughout the gallery was in working condition. Lack of tactile pavers along the water bodies, making it extremely dangerous for kids or people with disabilities. People found to be using the edges as seating, as not enough seating spaces are found throughout the area. The robotics gallery was constructed 8 months ago, and yet we get to see multiple design mishaps throughout. The gutter had a railing along it, which further blends into the walkway. Although the water body has tactile pavements along it, but the barricades are not strong enough to hold a person. The tactile pavement is placed in the wrong direction, which could lead a person from falling into it, and hence they have covered it up by placing planters over it, acting as a barricade. But at some places it is left open, making it extremely dangerous. As per the norms, the tactile pavers, red blister surfaces should be placed at controlled crossings only, and the yellow blister surfaces can be placed as guiding path wherever necessary. Further moving on to the musical fountain, it is aesthetically pleasing but not universally designed. It has descending steps used as seating spaces with the show at the center. Although the show does not happen anymore, it is now used as a spillover zone. There are 3 restaurants in Science City, out of which one had a non-accessible entry to it, which was further made accessible by temporary retrofittings for some people by placing stones and tiles along it. Uneven surfaces with no pavement throughout the eating area. The biggest restaurant of Science City has appropriate entry points and can be used by everyone with good amount of light and ventilation. The entire space has plenty natural light through the skylights along it. It has good working toilets but lacks a handicap toilet. Toilets throughout the campus did not have sanitary toilets or a handicap toilet. Most of them were inaccessible or had a very steep slope, which further led to a step. Few had circular paving outside it, making it difficult for wheelchair users to move on it. All in all, we would like to ask and let you ponder with a question. Are we as designers even a tad bit sensitive towards inclusive design? And do we really understand the meaning of it? Physical, sensory, and mental abilities vary from person to person and for individuals as they get older. Diversity is normal. Designers need to be aware of difference across the range of human abilities and of associate design considerations. The design needs to be accessible, and it should not feel like it is the need of the hour, but it should be just how it should be by being inclusive and making the built environment accessible for all, which includes not people with disabilities but also old age people, pregnant women, people with luggage, and children. To conclude, we would like to play a snippet of an interview at the Science Park. Thank you for your time.
एंट्रेंस से थोड़ा अभी यहाँ पे भी ऑलमोस्ट 600 मीटर हम अंदर आए तब हमें ये मिले तो एट 600 मीटर नाउ शी कुड वॉक सम डिस्टेंस सो दैट्स व्हाई वी कुड मैनेज इट बट अदरवाइज इफ एनीवन जस्ट ड्रॉप डाउन फ्रॉम हिज और हर कार एंड इफ शी वांट्स immediately on this picture that it should be available instantly. Second, and parking itself. We have paid 4,000 rupees for entrance, but they have asked us to pay deposit 500 rupees. Means they don't believe us. This is second most important thing. So this chair is not taken by any normal people. It is taken by a physically disabled. So it should be a free of cost. It should not be a paid service because anyhow earlier that person has lost his any body part or for that reason he could have done much expenditure. So that